where to study, how much to pay for it, and whether it delivers value, yes or no.
Obviously, the important consideration is whether you can actually stay back over there and work. Because otherwise, imagine spending this kind of money and then if you have to come back to India, while India is an amazing place and there's so many growth opportunities, UK tends to be actually cheaper than the US. What's very interesting is German public universities are actually very, very, very cheap. Germany comes with two other unique challenges.
I had German in my 12th standard. So.
Exactly. As a friend of mine once told me, Singapore is probably the best city in India to live in, right? It feels so. The other question which is relevant in this day of AI, do those entry-level jobs exist by the time you get out of college?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Global Indian Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Borate, and we have with us Mayuresh Kini of Zinc to address possibly the most important question that most Indians answer in their lives, which is where to study, how much to pay for it, and whether it delivers value, yes or no. So we're going to go country by country because the costs differ so much, visa regimes differ so much, whether you can do part-time work, that differs so much. And Mayuresh is going to explain to us what works in which country, how these costs stack up. So Mayuresh, let's begin with the biggest one of them all, which is, of course, the United States.
Yeah, Neil, thanks for having me here. Yes, I mean, this is an important question across, countries and across different regimes. Obviously, the situation in some of these countries is not perhaps ideal today. But as parents of young kids, if you're planning for your kids' higher studies, then you've got to look through perhaps the short-term perturbations that may happen in this.
Yeah.
And you need to plan for it financially, right? Because if you don't have the financial plan, then everything else falls apart.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand, each country, what the regime is, what the costs are, and tailor your plan accordingly to meet those. So, as you said, perhaps let's start with US, which is the largest one where Indians go. It's anywhere between 40 to 50% of Indian students heading out tend to study in the US. Now, whether that's for postgrad, typically masters, as we call it in India, and to a lesser extent, undergrad or graduation, as we call it in India. So, if we take the US as an example, what does it actually cost to study in the US, right? And if I were to take the undergraduate or what we call as graduation in India,
sure,
right? Now it varies depending on which college you're going to, obviously, and which city, right? And we'll divide the costs into like two broad buckets. One is the tuition fee itself, and one is the living expenses, right? So if I were to look at, let's call this the tuition fee part, and then there's rent and living expenses, right?
Sure.
So tuition fees, typical US college, and I'm taking a middle of the road. So if you take Ivy League, it will be more expensive. When I say Ivy League, I mean the Harvards, the Stanfords of the world. But if you take an average college, it's somewhere between $50,000 to $60,000 per year. So a 4-year program would therefore cost you $200,000 to $240,000.
Right.
And now you have the rent and living expenses, which per year is around about $20,000. Right. So you got to factor in both these. Right. So if you think of a 4-year program, it is going to be in the range of $300,000 for an average college. Now, this is the total cost. Remember, out of this, you can get some scholarships, some fee waivers, right? Different courses have different waivers or scholarships. You can save up for the entire amount. You could get a loan for this. There are various ways, but you got to think of the total cost as the target.
Right. And the target here is $300,000.
$300,000, right? For a 4-year degree, right? Now, if this was a master's degree, think of it as half, because it's typically a 2-year thing.
Right.
There tend to be more scholarships at the master's level than it is for the graduation level. So hence, therefore, if you're thinking of undergrad, you got to think of the higher side of the numbers. If it's masters, then you're probably going to get a lot more scholarships and you're going to get a lot more, fee waivers in that sense. So about 70% of the people going to the US are actually masters.
Right.
So clearly, Indians know which way the thing works. Obviously, the important consideration is whether you can actually stay back over there and work. Because otherwise, imagine spending this kind of money and then if you had to come back to India, while India is an amazing place and there's so many growth opportunities, just the sheer cost of what you're paid to is not going to be able to justify that, right?
Yeah.
Now, the US has a program which is called OPT, or Optional Practical Training. So you get a visa for anywhere between 1 to 3 years, typically 2 for STEM kind of courses, where you get a 2-year period in which you can work post study, right? After that, you need to transition to a normal visa, which is the H1B, or it depends on what category it is. But you do get a 2-year period in which you can pay down some of this, and that's what a lot of people typically tend to do. Until recently, this path was very clear. Admittedly, under the current scenario, perhaps the ability of someone to get that H1B after those 2 years is something which is not so clear at this point. And a lot of education consultants would also tell you that you need to have a multi-country strategy in place instead of putting all your eggs into the single US basket.
Absolutely. So US is clearly the most expensive of the lot.
Yeah. UK has been the traditional preferred option. Obviously, we all speak English, so no language issues there. UK tends to be actually cheaper than the US. Not by that much now, especially because the pound has kind of strengthened against the dollar, right? But this number actually drops down to somewhere in this range in terms of tuition fees, right? Rent and living expenses maybe around about 18,000. Again, pound appreciating creates a bit of a thing. So one of the reasons why this difference also exists is actually much cheaper in terms of flights. There is an assumption that you will go and come back.
Of course.
US, obviously, the distance is what leads to a higher cost, right? UK, like the US, has a 2-year post-study work permit, and that's a fairly well-beaten path again, right? UK has seen a surge this year, especially given challenges of obtaining a US visa. So you're seeing more and more people go to UK this year. What you do need to be aware of while evaluating is that the things that you need to do to get admission to a US college versus a UK college are slightly different. They're not the same. US colleges will place a lot more emphasis on extracurriculars and co-curriculars versus a UK.
Yeah.
Here, the weightage will be like 50-50, whereas the UK is more acad focused.
Yeah.
It is 70-30.
Yeah.
Right. So, therefore, whatever you do, make sure your grades are in shape.
Correct. And for postgraduate, you need GRE over here, whereas here you may or may not.
Absolutely, right. Staying on the topic of Europe, new interesting options, right, which a lot of Indians are thinking about.
Germany.
Right. Not commonly done, but now, interestingly, Indians have now become the largest student community in Germany this year. Right. Again, partly because of
US costs.
Challenges of visa. So this has become interesting. What's very interesting is German public universities are actually very, very, very cheap. Right. It used to be kind of zero-ish, but now they've introduced a very small fee.
Right.
But this is actually under 5K.
It's amazing.
Which is almost nothing. And this will be around $15,000 per year. Right? So you can think of this whole thing as happening under $80,000, 60-70 lakhs. I mean, that's not very different from colleges, top tier college in India, right? For many of the private.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 1/4 the cost of the US.
Exactly, because of this, right? Germany comes with 2 other unique challenges. One is obviously the language. which while obviously Germans do speak English, for most of them English is a natural second language. You do need to know German. The second thing is, for a graduation level, they actually expect you to finish 13 years of schooling. Right? In India, we have a 10+2 system, so you got to do something for 1 year so that you hit the 13-year mark,
Right.
and then apply for this. So there is a 1 year cost, and then there's the language thing. But yeah, the cost clearly makes a massive difference. Germany also has a post-study work visa. This is only 18 months though.
Okay.
Right? It's not 24 months like US and UK.
Right. And does GRE help here, or?
Depends on the university, really. I mean, some of the universities do have English as the medium of instruction, in which case there could be a different criteria. But
largely no.
Yeah. Okay. So that's this thing. France is another interesting option that's opened up again. Again, if you think of the public colleges in France, and there are few, right, the cost does look like Germany. But if you take the private colleges, and that's more common, this number is somewhere like this.
$25,000 to $30,000.
Yeah, and the cost of living is similar to, say,
$15,000.
Yeah, $15,000, right? So again, language is a bit of a issue. You will need to learn French. The good thing about both French and German is that you have the Alliance Française,
Yep.
And you have the Max Muller-Bauerns,
Yes.
Which are there in most major cities in India now.
Correct.
And there are a lot of schools now in India which actually offer French as an option for a second language.
Yes.
Right. So if you're actually doing long-term planning.
Yes. Or indeed German. I mean, I had German in my 12th standard. So
exactly. So that's when these start becoming real options, right? Yeah. Moving on to closer to home,
right?
Singapore, right, is an increasingly popular destination for Indians. Some great universities, NUS, NTU, both in Singapore. And as a friend of mine once told me, Singapore is probably the best city in India to live in, right? It feels so much like home.
Yeah.
And it's just a short flight away.
Yeah.
So from the challenges of having to send your child far away, or having to rush home, it's a 4 or 5 hour flight to most places in India. So that makes it a lot better. Costs are again much lower than the US, right? Again, it varies depending on course and program. So everything on this board is, think of it as an average or a median. You could end up higher or lower than this in either direction. This again is somewhere,
$20,000 to $25,000.
Yeah, per year. And this is, well, maybe 12 to 15,000, right? Singapore is cheaper.
Right.
In some ways, it's more expensive in other ways.
Of course.
Right. So it varies, but this actually is a very, very viable option. Because if you consider a 4-year program, in this will get done in $160,000.
Yeah.
Right. Which, even if you were to think of it in terms of rupees, about 1.2, 1.3 crores, which is expensive, certainly a lot of money, but way cheaper than
the US.
This. Yeah. So we have seen people start thinking in terms of laddering, right? It's an interesting concept, saying, I'll do graduation here, and then I will go there for masters.
Interesting.
Right? Because doing graduation here would be just too expensive.
Yes.
But doing this and then this actually makes a lot of economic viability is easier.
Yes.
Also, from a parent perspective, child is much closer to home when he or she is younger.
In Singapore,
And by the time someone's going to the US is 21, right? Correct. So there is this logical thought process that happens. Moving further away from Singapore slightly, great frenemy of India when it comes to Australia.
Yes.
Has been a very interesting place. Now the number of visas and all that have reduced. There is.
Sorry, Mayuresh, quick detour. The post-study work visa in France and Singapore,
Germany is 18 months. France is around, it depends on the course really, again 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
Singapore is 1 year.
Oh, nice.
Right. Singapore is 1 year. Australia, coming back to Australia, little more expensive than Singapore. It's probably somewhere in this range depending upon the university again. Cost of living is slightly more expensive. I would put it in this range. Again, part of this is because it is far away from India in that sense.
Yeah.
You literally have to probably go via Singapore
Right,
to get to Australia. Australia has been a great favorite for MBA courses, particularly. Right, a lot of great universities that happen. You will also find a lot of these universities now collaborating with Indian universities, or like they have now, some of them have campuses in Gift City, for example, where you do 1 year in Gift City campus, and the second year you actually do in Australia. So in that case, the first year cost of this
comes down,
and this gets mitigated to Indian levels.
Yeah.
And suddenly, the cost benefit analysis of that whole program is suddenly that much better, and it also makes it that much more financially possible for a lot of people. So very interesting things happening out of Australia. Post-work visa again exists. Couple of years is what you can get. Again, all of these are true at this point in time as we are speaking. A word of caution to anyone who's watching this: please do check what the current regulations are, because they do keep changing. Basis, national priorities in each of these countries.
Yeah, we've missed one hot favorite, which is Canada.
Yes, I would say former hot favorite. So we can come back to Canada. Again, visa numbers are dramatically reduced as they look to contain immigration. Canada is more cheaper than the US for obvious reasons. It is actually probably closer to the
Australian number. Living expenses are also somewhere like around the 18K mark. It is cheaper than the US, undoubtedly. So yes, again, Canada was favorite for masters. Right. Visa numbers have dropped dramatically, and the diplomatic spat between India and Canada has not helped in increasing those numbers. So we do now know a lot of people going to more offbeat destinations, which perhaps right. Before that, Mayuresh, post-study work visa for Canada.
Canada again, you can get up to 2 years typically. Right. Again, keeps changing. So that's the thing. Almost all of these places also do have the option for you to work while studying. Now that's part-time work, typically limited to 20 hours per week. Right. And US kind of restricts it to like on-campus jobs. Roles. So you can be a teaching assistant or something else within the university itself, which will help offset some of these costs. So a lot of Indian students do take that route to optimize the cost of education.
Right. So any offbeat destinations?
So it depends. So if you think of medicine as an option, right? And obviously, I mean, there are many people in India who want to become a doctor than the number of seats that are available. A lot of people are going to what you may call former Soviet republics. There were 20,000 Indian kids in Ukraine before the war started. But now that has shifted to Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Georgia.
Right.
Where the overall cost of these programs for the 4 or 5 year of medical course is only about $25,000 to $30,000, right? So, and then of course there's living costs, but you could get the whole thing done under $50,000, which by the way might be cheaper than doing it in India, right? So medicine is a interesting thing. Of course, one of the things is if you were to do that, if you want to come back to India and practice as a doctor, you have to pass another exam in India before you get licensed to practice in India. So it's not just straightforward. Whereas most of the other places, that's less of a challenge. People are going to further offbeat places now. We have seen people going to Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland, Sweden. Now these are for masters typically, and these can be for certain specializations which perhaps are not necessarily mainstream. Geology for one, right? So we do see people
and they have courses in English.
and they have courses in English, right? And of course, the cost of that you could assume are similar to like a France kind of a level. But of course, the difficulty for Indians is almost always language and the weather. Right? It does get extremely cold. It's hard to imagine someone going from Bangalore or Chennai to Finland, right? So let's be honest.
Yeah.
So given all of this, it becomes important that you plan your finances accordingly, because these are substantial costs. In some cases, like buying a house. Kind of cost equivalent. So therefore, I mean, as with any other financial goal that you may have, start early, invest regularly. SIP your way into it is perhaps the best strategy. And if you have a long enough time horizon, then equity beats everything else. Given that you're considering foreign education, then do consider investing in dollars, because you have a dollar liability coming up in the future, and exchange does kill, right? So the rupee is now 86 point something today, right? Just a few months back it was 82, so it's kind of depreciated by 4% in the last 6 months. On an average over the past 10 years, the rupee is depreciated by 3-4%. So if you have 5-6 years before your child goes, add 20%, right? One of the ways to protect against that is to obviously invest in dollars, create a dollar portfolio under the RBI's liberalized remittance scheme, and every Indian is permitted to invest up to $250,000 annually. That's clearly way more than what this would require.
True.
So if you save it up over a few years, you will easily, be able to accumulate the dollar corpus needed for this. Of course, that being said and done, like I said, the important thing is under the current circumstances, you need to keep your options open, because visa rules
keep
changing, right? And you do want to have a certain, a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, which is why earlier US only was a viable strategy, because there's so many colleges in the US that you would be able, and they do also have the common application. So it became very straightforward. But now start thinking of other options as well, right?
So Mayuresh, if you had to pick one country before we conclude as the new sort of destination that people should really look at, what would it be?
Apart from these?
Within these or apart?
Within these, I would say Singapore.
Okay.
Right? Because the costs are actually much lower, again, much closer to home. Right? And it's very, very welcoming for Indians per se, right? I mean, of course, the culture is very different from India, but it is closer to home than it is for any of the other destinations that we're talking of. English works, right? So you will need to learn Singlish, which is fine, which is you'll get to can very quickly, right? But great universities, amazing cost, great place to live per se, right? And great opportunities coming out of these colleges as well.
Absolutely. Final thought, people look at job markets a lot. We've discussed post-study work visas, but does US have the most robust job market?
Yes and no. Again, so if you look at some of the proposed changes to the H-1B program, for example, right, the category 1 or entry-level Bay Area employee salary to qualify for an H-1B has now been set at $152K. Right, so that makes it fairly hard for people, and that's by design, right? Because they actually want to give H-1Bs to the most skilled people.
Right.
So entry level, getting a H-1B, perhaps tough. Right. The other question which is relevant in this day and age is, in this day of AI and all that, do those entry level jobs exist by the time you get out of college? Right. And that is a question which I think time will tell. But you got to think hard about that with the cost. And if after 2 years you don't think, then you're doing the risk reward trade off of that, which is why I said this is
Singapore is the
cost is low enough that even if you had to come back to India, it's not an insurmountable number that you can't get a cost benefit analysis out of it.
Absolutely. All right, Mayuresh, thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thanks, Neil. Great chatting with you as always.